Well, thank you everyone for coming out for our first Twitter space for Spire. Really excited to kick this off. Definitely want to kind of take a second to introduce the team, give Tail a second to kind of talk about how they put this all together, who's working on the project. And then we have some really cool updates about story, going over the devlog, game mechanics. So yeah, we're shooting for probably about 45 minutes or so. And if anyone has any questions, we might push a little bit longer, but this is recorded. So everyone can go back and share it and show your friends and go back and listen to it later if you want. Yeah. Let's definitely get it kicked off. Tail, do you want to kind of go into who the team members are and how you got this whole journey started?
Yeah, definitely. I'll start with a little bit of an introduction of myself first. I'm Chris. I'm originally from the Netherlands, but currently living in Turkey. I'm about 30 years old, and I'm the founder of Spire. I started out as a game developer in my game development study. But over the years of doing that study, I mostly found out that the entire gaming environment is as harsh as it gets. I'll just blatantly say it like that. I had my first internship at a gaming company, and that's where I basically found out that in the high-end tier of the gaming environment, you're either one of the best out there or you don't matter at all. And that at the time scared me so much that I ended up being a software engineer instead. And ever since, as a professional job, I've been a software engineer for making systems for clients. But in the meantime, I've always kept my passion for game development. I've always kept my passion for creating a world and creating something for myself and other people to enjoy. So that's what I've been doing in the meantime. A couple of years back, I think it was in 2017, I got into the Web3 space, and it was personally for me and for a lot of people joining back then, like one of the worst time periods to join the Web3 space, because it was right on top of the peak of the bull run back then. And just like a lot of other people, I also bought the top, and instead I always kept everything and I stayed in the space. Back in 2019, I started getting more into Web3, how it works, what it's for. And back in 2020, I started developing in Solidity. And over the past couple of years, I've joined multiple projects, helping them with certain features that they wanted to make, helping them with marketplaces, with NFT launches, etc. And in the meantime, as a side project, I always worked on my own project. I always worked on making a story that's expansive, always worked on character development, always worked on monster development, on mechanics that I could play around with, mechanics that I could try and use to actually create a game. And that's what I've been doing more and more and more. And over the course, I got enough budget to actually say, you know what? I'm actually going to create a game myself this time. And I started focusing all my time on it because the budget allowed me to. But before I continue about Spire and continue about the game, I first want to talk about the people that I'm working with. There's a great array of amazing people that I've met over the course in my game development years, in my Web3 development years. And I always wanted to work with people that I really knew. I always wanted to work with people that I've worked with before, and I know how they handle problems, they know how I handle problems, and we also know from each other that when things go not the way that we want to, how we can actually help each other without getting annoyed by like little things of annoyances that every team has. So the first one is Hido. Hido is the one that creates our Discord bot. He is a backend developer that I've worked with for multiple companies over the course of the past years. I know him in real life. He's also worked with me on a couple of other projects, and he's also been working on working with different projects himself, like DeFi Kingdoms and Freala. The second one I want to talk about is Daniela. Daniela is an amazing UX UI graphic designer. She's how would I say this? She's very anal when it comes to how you have to decide various things. She doesn't create a UI because she want to create UI. I want it to look like this, and then she starts. No, she wants you to create an architecture information. She wants to create wireframing. She works on a prototype and shows it to you. She wants that feedback. When you say something is amazing, the first time she never believes it. She always thinks something can be evolved. She always thinks something can be improved upon. And that's the kind of personality that I always like in people. When I ask someone to create something, I first want to discuss on what is it that I want, what is it that can be improved on what I want. And whenever I come with an idea and people think that idea can be approved, I don't want them to just say yes. I rather have them to tell me something that I decided or something that I want is the shittiest idea ever, than have them to just blindly say yes, create it, and then it ending up not being exactly what I want or not being what people are comfortable with using. And that's what I really love about Daniela. And Daniela also has a partner in crime that is working together with us. It's Sebastian. Sebastian is creating the isometric character models for us. He's been in the Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder space for the past 20 years or so. And he's a real Pathfinder geek, and that's what I really love. And we've been trying to create a world that is really connected into Pathfinder, but not following its rule set or following exactly what its guide is saying. We want to create our own thing, but we want it to be relatable for people that are using Pathfinder or using Dungeons and Dragons. And apart from the art that he creates, which I absolutely love, he also helps me navigating my way into doing this. He also helps me navigating my way into using the Pathfinder rule set, using the Pathfinder guide, and still being able to create something for our own. The way that Sebastian creates his characters is kind of similar to the way that Daniela creates her UX and UI designs. He first wants a good conversation with me about what the character is like, what his personality is like, what his history is, what his goals are, what his faction is like, what his religion is like. And that gives him a really good idea of how the character should pose, how the character should show himself to the world before giving him attributes like helmets and swords and stuff like that. And if we have that conversation, he starts sketching. He sends me a couple of sketches. I tell him which one I like the most. Then he creates a wireframing outline to really define specific areas of that character. And when we then both agree on what the outline should look like, that's when he actually creates the character. That's when he gives the character personality and gives the character a motive to do something. And next one I want to talk about is Timur. Timur is our 2D icon artist. What every character needs is gear. What every character needs is like items that he can craft with, items that he can use, keys that he can open doors with. All these icons, all these items, they are being created by Timur. Timur is an amazing artist, and what Timur likes doing most is sketching, outlining, creating, just the way that Sebastian does it. But the greatest thing about Timur is when he gives me a sketch, he just doesn't give me a sketch. He gives me like an art book page of a sketch with like little bits of notes everywhere, little bits of icons everywhere that tells you what happens with the item that he's creating, what it's for, how it's being created. And we always like to give a little bit of a backstory for every single item. So that for example, we have one character called Gala, and Gala has a helmet. And that helmet is not just a helmet. The helmet is a helmet that he has found, that is being passed on to different generations. And that helmet contains all the knowledge and all the power that every previous wielder has had. And like little things like that. Like Timur doesn't just create an item. He creates an item that you really want because of the backstory of the item itself. And then we have Diego. Diego is our isometric monster artist. The funniest thing about Diego, when I first met with him, it might sound weird, but I thought he was kind of psychotic. I wouldn't say but that's exactly what I loved about him. I want monsters that really fear you, monsters that make you like doubt the existence of reality, and that doubt like I want that monster to be stuck in your head and you keep thinking about it. And that's what he does. He takes a known Pathfinder or Dungeons and Dragons monster and he just in the best way possible ruins it. Like he tries to combine 3 or 4 different monsters and tries to find out the best way that he can like horrify you, that he can really make you scared of the thing that you're fighting. And that really enhances the story that we're writing as well, because we want to give you a reason to want to defeat that monster. We don't want you to simply see a rat walking around and tell you, okay, defeat 5 rats. Like, why would I defeat those 5 rats? But if there's this abolishment of a monster coming after you, you have a fight or flight response. And that's exactly the type of thing that we're giving in game as well. Like, we give you the opportunity to either not fight off any monster and go around it and defeat, like finish the level that way, or give you the chance to kill the monster and fight it head on and just completely demolish. The next one that I want to talk about is Max. And Max is an isometric tile artist. He didn't work on isometric art before he started working with us, but I love the way that he handles environments. I love the way that he thought when I said, I want a dark and foreboding dungeon. And then his mind just starts rambling on and on and on about different types of things that he can put in the environments, different types of stuff that can happen. Maybe there's a little bit of a pool of some substance there, and like he starts thinking about what he can do with that substance, what that substance will do to you. And that's what I really loved about his way of thinking. And he really shows that in the art that he's creating. The next one that I want to talk about is not a person, but rather a company. It's called EvaBox. It's a company from Turkey, and they are creating 3D cinematic art for us. The intro that you're seeing on our website, the intro that you're seeing at the start of our devlog, that's being created by EvaBox. So that means that all the 3D art that's being created, all the cinematics that you'll see during the game are actually original videos specifically made for the Spire. And we really want to use EvaBox in the way that we'll be telling the story during our game. So every time that you enter a new part of the story, we want that party to kick off with a cinematic. And that also gives you more of a reason to want to continue with the game, because you want to know the next part of the story. The next one that I want to talk about is Eve. And Eve is a very calm woman that is an amazing writer. She is the one that is constantly talking with me, constantly conversing with me about what's going to happen next, what's the motive for the character to do something, what's the motive for the character to maybe even not to do something or back off, or like what's happening within the story, what's happening within the world, what is the backstory of every item that you're finding. She's the one writing that all down for me. And she's the one that is really pulling out my ideas out of my head. Because like I'm a developer, I have a lot of ideas, but I have no idea how to tell them to people. When I start explaining my story to people, I jump from section to section to section to section. And I had that same problem when I wanted to write down the ideas that I had in my head in order to create a story. And she's really helping me navigate myself into my own ideas. And she's really great at writing those ideas down and writing those ideas into an actual story. And then there's two more people. There's Brian and Sid. And Sid is currently our host at the moment. And they are helping us with the community and with the socials. And the hardest part for me in creating a project, hardest part for me in creating like anything at all is communicating it to the outside world. Like, how do you handle marketing? How do you handle the community? How do you handle posting everything to your socials? How do you get people engaged? And that's what they're really helping me with, like navigating me through this. I think that was the introduction for our team, Sid.
Yep, I think that that went really well. Thank you so much for the kind introduction for myself as well. I appreciate that.
Of course.
So next, I think you said you wanted to jump into like introducing the storyline and getting into some of the lore details a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. So this story is a story that's been stuck in my head for the past maybe 6 or 7 years. And I've always been working on the specifics, working on the characters, working on their motives. And I've always been interested in RPG games and tactics games. And combining those three assets is what eventually created Spire. So the world of Spire is technically a story that's set thousands of years in the future. But the environment feels like thousands of years in the past instead. That's because it's a dystopian world where humanity has gone back to the medieval times. And it's basically like a grand mixture between fantasy and science fiction. The story starts where 6 characters or 6 adventurers from different factions have gone into the wilderness to find a better place to live. In the search for their better place, they found each other along the way and form a party. This party shares stories where they each learn new things all the time. And while they share their stories, the reader or the player will also learn more things about the story, learn more things about the world that the characters are living in, and how the world has been in war for the past hundreds of years, how factions are turning the people against each other, and how nobody really knows anything about the past, because how stories generally work from generations to generations is that they get altered a little bit each time it's being told to a different generation. And because there's thousands of years in between the dystopian event and right now, that story has been altered so many times that each faction basically has a completely different story that they're telling their children. And this is also one of the main reasons that all the factions are in war with each other, because some factions highly believe in the technology they've been finding along the years, but other factions highly believe in various religious items or the different reasons why people can use magic. The adventurers themselves in the story, they know nothing about what the world used to be. They only know about what the world is right now. So you'll never really hear them talking about pre-dystopian area. And the reader of the book itself won't know anything either up until they find it out themselves. So when the characters in the story are actually finding out new information, the reader finds that information as well. During the travels, they find a large tower in the distance, and going there, they find the nature around them to slowly perish, and the air becoming heavier. After they reach the tower, they find that it reaches hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of meters into the sky. And the tower both looks like made by men, but also organic. It's a really weird combination between organic movement and how people would make structures. When the adventurers enter the tower, they find a various amount of monsters. They find puzzles. They find weird technology that they've never seen. And the further they get to the top of the tower, the more information they will get and the more puzzle pieces they will get. And combining them all together teaches them more about what happens during the event, what happened before the event, and how they got into the state of the world that they are right now. During their journey, they also find information about a strange substance, and that strange substance reached the earth, started multiplying and injecting itself into everything and everyone it touches. Some survived, but most of them died upon contact. And this is also how mages are created in Spire. They're using the arcane power that's being held by the substance, and that arcane power comes from past family members surviving the touch of this substance, using this arcane or using this substance to change the fabric of reality, changing the energy in the air and making it into something more physical. But using this arcane completely exhausts your character and completely exhausts anyone that uses this. Humanity found that the only solution to killing off this substance was to nuke it, but the results of nuking this were disastrous, and that's also what created the world that it is right now. Some people ran underground, and those that did, they ended up surviving, and the civilization of the world was like once a highly technological one, but due to the nuclear waste, what was before called like Earth became uninhabitable, and the fact that it hasn't been fertile for thousands of years is the reason why people haven't gone away from below the surface. And due to dozens of generations living underground, the stories that people have been telling have been like altered so many times. The story of Spire at the moment follows a civilization that ended up living and surviving on the North Pole, except due to all the changes in the weather because of the nuclear war, because of the nuclear blast, the shift in tectonic plates and the changes of organic patterns, the planet has completely changed in both its climate and both its shape. And that's one of the reasons that people are currently able to live on the North Pole, and places where used to be sea now might be land, places that used to have land now will be covered by water. And the civilization in the North Pole currently has no idea of any technology or any idea of the past, and without context, you would actually be thinking that they would be living in a medieval era at the moment. That's like the gist of the story in 10 minutes.
I love it. I'm just sitting here like, because I've read through some of the snippets that you've sent me and all of that, and I'm just sitting here like just soaking it all in. Yeah, that's really exciting. That's going to be so cool. And just like seeing that hearing the lore, seeing some of the like cinematic trailer, just like combining those in my head, it's just like it's going to be really cool.
The funny thing about the lore is like we came up with so much lore that we ended up wanting to create a novel about it. So that's actually what we're doing in the background at the moment as well. We're actually creating a novel about our story, and based on that novel, we want to end up creating more and more quests that really follow the narrative of that novel as well.
That's so cool. So it won't just be like a one and done release. You guys are going to keep expanding with like new stories and new content.
Yeah, definitely. Like over the past couple of years, we came up with so many ideas that I could fill years and years and years of future.
That's awesome. So yeah, we'll have plenty of stuff to do in Spire for years to come. It sounds like that's so cool. So do you want to explain to us a little bit about kind of what you covered in the devlog? I know some people have read it, or some people have watched the video. But do you kind of want to give a recap for everybody who might not have had a chance to?
Yeah, definitely. So Spire itself is a tactical RPG. It offers a unique blend of game mechanics. The first thing that you want to do when creating a game is, okay, what do you really love making? Because you really need a passion in what you're creating in order to make a truly fun and beautiful game. And so that's what I've been doing. I've combined like tactical strategic games and RPGs. And even though I did play a lot of tactical RPG games, this is not exactly what I want to be following. Like, this is the main drive of the game that we're creating, but beyond that, we want to create way more different aspects to the game that you could use to enhance the core gameplay. The game's combat system gives players an endless amount of strategic options to explore because they have 6 characters and they can move those 6 characters separately with a combined amount of actions. So every character in the game has 4 main stats that are mana, health, energy, and actions. And mana and energy are a resource that are consumed when players or characters use attacks or they're using spells like healing. The actions are a stat that are used with every single thing you do. So if you take a step, it costs an action. If you do a spell like healing, it might cost 2 or 3 actions. If you open a door, it costs an action. If you're opening a loot box, it costs an action. So sometimes it might be better to not open loot boxes or not open specific doors because you want to either kill as many mobs as possible in a short amount of time, or you want to finish the dungeon in like as least amount of actions as you want, because specific ways of finishing a dungeon may or may not give you an achievement. The thing with actions, though, is actions are not used by one single character, but rather combined and distributed among all your characters. So that means that if one character has, for example, 4 actions and the other character 6 actions, then you can use up to like 10 actions between the 2 characters. So if one of the characters is really your healer, so he has a low defense, you can choose to not walk with that character at all and have him just use a healing spell, and then use your other character to actually walk to a mob and fight with him. And that means that with a full party, you could also choose for one of your characters to be completely focused on having as many actions as you want and just leaving him behind. And just having the other 5 characters use as many actions that the 6th character has in his stats. This gameplay mechanic offers players an endless amount of strategic options because there's so many ways that you can build up your party. You can focus completely on having as many actions as you want. You can focus on having as many offensive stats as possible. So there's multiple ways of doing a dungeon, and that also gives a lot of replayability to people. In addition to this stat system, Spire also offers the ability to upgrade your camp outside of the Spire. So every time that you're playing a game, you start in front of the Spire outside, and that has like a little bit of a camp. Your camp has an auction house. Your camp has a barracks where you can see all your characters and form presets for parties, so you can start a level quicker. It has a campfire where you can accept or abandon or track quests. It has a wandering merchant. That wandering merchant is a merchant that offers you items, and those items will rotate every week. You can also sell your trash items or items that you don't need anymore in that wandering merchant to gain more gold. But the fun thing about this camp is that you can also upgrade your camp. So you can add more tents to your camp for different reasons. You can fortify your camp to make it stronger for incoming raider events that might come in the future. You can upgrade your auction house to maybe give the auction house more features. There's way more ideas that have already been built in, but we'll discuss those in later devlogs and in later Twitter spaces. In your camp, there's also a personalized tent. We call that the housing option. This is where you can furniture and you can set up your own tent. This furniture can be crafted with items that you find in the tower, and you can really make that tent your own. So that way you could create a little bit of a, I don't know if any of you remember the old games like Habbo Hotel or Penguin Club. Like you can set up your tent that way, and then when in the future multiplayer arrives to Spire, we can also have people visit your tent, and we can add a whole bunch of social aspect mechanics in that. So without it just being a tactical RPG, we're also including a lot of I wouldn't really say city building, but city building features in the game, and we'll be giving people the ability to really create a social aspect to the game as well. So, telling you this, we're showing that there's way more possibilities into adding different types of gameplays, different types of game styles. It's kind of mini games around the original game itself, and that way we can touch as many genres as possible without differing from our original idea being a tactical RPG. I think that's the overall example of the mechanics. Spire's dungeons itself, there are environments where players will explore as they progress through the game story. These dungeons offer a wealth of items, NPCs, mobs, and puzzles that players will need to navigate to advance the game story. After you've finished your storyline, each dungeon that you're joining afterwards is randomly generated, and that gives players a unique experience each time that they enter the dungeons. And players can expect a variety of different environments, from tunnels to ruins to actual corridors, and each dungeon that they're joining will offer its own set of challenges, including unique monsters for every environment, unique puzzles and unique traps that you might need to either face or find your way around it. And these dungeons are, even though they're all separate, they're all needed to advance the game's storyline and side quests as well. I think that's about it for the mechanics.
I'm excited for the randomly generated dungeons. I think it's cool that there's end game content, so you're not just like replaying the story over and over again, waiting for new stuff to come out. You've actually got things to do while you're building up your camp, and yeah, that's going to be really fun.
Yeah, definitely. Like the automated the randomly generated dungeons are kind of an action RPG idea that it's kind of the same as Rift from Diablo 3. And that really creates a dynamic way to upgrade your items and upgrade your set. And the fun thing about being able to create randomly generated dungeons also gives us the ability to this will be farther along the way in the future. But this also gives us the ability for people to create dungeons themselves. Because this way we can have people create. So how it works is we've assigned values to every single tile and every single asset in the game. And we've assigned possible placements for every single value. So the system knows that some values are being able to walk on, some values are walls, so you can't walk through them. You can't place walls on top of bookcases, but you can place bookcases on top of floors and stuff like that. And because we created this value system, we can have people create their own dungeons and then create a seed out of it. And then when you send that seed to other people, the game will basically generate the dungeon based on the values that you're giving them. So this is not something that will be launched together with the game, but it is something that we've already been figuring out and already been working on in case we, when we want to actually launch this idea.
Yeah, that'll be awesome. And especially once more social aspects come into it, that'll be really interesting thing to be able to send dungeons back and forth to each other. Do you think there would be a way to make that kind of public? So with Minecraft, you can go see community worlds and things like that. Do you think there would be a way at some point we could have a place where you could go look at all the community built dungeons?
We are definitely the thing is we are still in the process of finding out what is exactly possible and what's not possible. Because we don't want people to be creating dungeons so big that it'll just simply crash other people's
Gotcha.
For example. But the fun thing about the fact that we're making a game in the Web3 space is so how the Web3 portion of Spire works is when you start a game, you get the ability to buy a character slot. So instead of buying a character, you buy the slot you play it in with. And the amount of slots, they determine the size of your party, and they also determine the size of the party presets that you can create. So you can always take out characters from your character slot and put a different one back in. But if you have 5 character slots, you won't be able to have a party with 6 characters. And if you create a character preset party that you can use in different dungeons or use in future PvPs, then you would have to buy 12 character slots in order to create 2 presets of 6 characters, for example. But if you're sick of the characters that you're playing with, you can just take it out and equip a different character in your slot. So that means that the game effectively is just a one-time buy. The items that you're playing with, there are items in the game, but you can mint them on demand. So if you want to sell your item, you can mint that item and sell it on the marketplace. Except there's one specific area where you won't be able to mint anymore. And that's when you craft or enhance your item with a special gem that you will find later in the game. When you craft or enhance your item with a special gem, then it becomes a soulbound item and you won't be able to sell it anymore. You will be able to mint it, but the minted item will not be sellable. And we did it on purpose because we don't want Spire to become a pay-to-win game. So there's always a way to pay and become better than a starting class, but you'll never be able to become the best, because to be able to become the best, you'll need that gem and you'll need to craft your item in a specific way in order for it to become stronger. And this minting is something that we want to use for those dungeon seeds as well. So if you create your own dungeon and you want other people to play it, you can either just mint it and give it to someone else, or you can say, hey, I created the best fucking dungeon ever, I'm going to mint it and I'm going to sell my dungeon on the marketplace. And that gives a variety of ways that you can either play dungeons or create dungeons and make money out of it. So effectively in the future, there will be an endless amount of dungeons that you can play. If you don't want to play dungeons made by us in Spire anymore, you can just go to the marketplace and either get some of the free dungeons that people are just giving away, or you can buy someone's dungeon and play that. And then the people making those dungeons can also decide whether they want only 30 or 40 people to play it, or they just make an endless amount of supply. So that also means that the people that make the best dungeons and make the most amazing dungeons available, they will also get the most amount of mints on their account, for their account.
That's a really cool system and a really interesting way to integrate Web3 into that aspect, so that it does kind of community filter, I guess, quality wise. The cream will rise to the top, if somebody's making bad dungeons and they're not fun, then people are just not gonna keep buying their stuff or keep collecting.
Yeah, definitely. So effectively, if you in the future want the most amount of dungeons, you just search for the NFTs that get the most amount of traffic.
That's really cool. So we are coming up on about 45 minutes of what we're shooting for. Did you have more stuff that you wanted to cover?
No, moment, no. Yes,
okay.
There's in the future, in the coming weeks, we'll dive a lot deeper into specific mechanics, specific features, specific ideas.
Sounds good. I think this was definitely a good overview for everybody, and that way it's also not super long. Well, thank you so much for a great first space. I definitely had a blast, and I'm looking forward to the next one.